What's up, everybody? Peter X, this O'Coffrey here, and welcome to another episode of Three Things in a Month. Doing 2 months this time, April and May of 2024. Usually I hit it every month, but this is the second time I've had to combine months. But sometimes stuff happens, and so our three things of the month are. We got two big catalog sales, Kiss and Michael Jackson. That's number one. Number two, Paul McCartney is a billionaire. Paul McCartney of the Eagles. And number three, there's been a rash of artists canceling tours and having to cancel concert dates. So let's start. Let's start with number one and the big sales. So somehow I missed this. I knew that there was speculation that Michael Jackson's catalog would go for $1 billion. He actually ended up selling half of the catalog to Sony for $600 million, and this was in February. And so, the first quarter of the year is always very busy because that's when the Indiana House of Representatives has their legislative session, and I still try, I do the Washington Post and New York Times every day. Somehow that slipped my mind, but here we are talking about it. That was big. I mean, Mike, the family was seeking $1 billion a few weeks before the sale there. The analysts thought that they would only get $800 to $900 million, but so they're getting a $1.2 valuation. So half for $600 million. So that means someone else is going to have to pony up another $600 million for that. Hey, not bad. And then the other big sale is Kiss selling for $300 million. Interesting. I mean, Gene Simmons, when the big flurry last year and folks were selling, he said Kiss should go for $1 billion, being that, Kiss had already signed off on folks, putting on the makeup and touring in the future. And there's, Gene and Paul say Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley say they're playing around with a, interactive video, hologram kind of show. So we'll see where that goes. But Kiss has been a marketing machine at some point on the do Kiss and branding, because they invented marketing and got a lot of shit for it back in the late 70s. People hated them for it, for many years, but now everybody's doing what Kiss did, 50 years ago. I mean, and since the late 90s, certainly since streaming, everybody's borrowed from Kiss's playbooks, to pay their bills. So Kiss just did it first and whatever. So, yeah, but at some point I'm definitely doing a Kiss and branding episode. So, yeah. So the other rumor, another big sale out there looming is Queen. So Queen, the surviving members are kind of negotiating with Sony again, and it looks like they're going to get $1 billion, so at least. So we'll see, we'll see where that goes. The second big, shoe to drop is Paul McCartney is now a billionaire. So, Paul, sometime in the mid 2010s was able to buy back into the Beatles catalog. They didn't know what catalogs were worth back then, so they, Paul, I believe the Northern Lights. So the Northern Lights was the split was John. The two owners got 50%, and John got 20%. John Lennon, Paul McCartney got 20%. And then 10% went to Brian Epstein, their manager. So that was the break. So, and 20% wasn't enough to, to get, Paul's say, and what could be done with the songs, and just, if you own the masters, you can say, oh no, you can't sample this, or, I don't want so-and-so doing the cover song, that kind of stuff. And you can, sign all, you have to sign, you have to say too in commercials and if your song's in this movie or that movie. So, it really is, the economic control of your music that's really, big. You still get paid, but I don't know if you get paid the same as if you own your masters. Um, so it's not a money issue, as much as it is a control issue. Um, because, the split when it comes to the old split, I don't know what it is, back when there was records was, um, on radio was 50% for the record company and 25 for the writer and 25 for the composer. So, then, they went a couple years ago and got more money, from radio. I don't know what the split is now, but the fact, and the split was, you know, for record sales was more lopsided. I believe I read somewhere that, the Beatles and, the standard, even Elvis was, all those folks, the singles were $1 back or 99 cents, and, the artist got a penny. Well, penny went a lot farther back then and whatnot. But yeah, so that's Paul McCartney. The Stones don't own, the Rolling Stones don't own most of their catalog still from most of the 60s. Now, I don't know when, they celebrate, freedom and tax freedom with, because they owed a bunch of taxes as well. They came out of the 60s, not doing very well financially, and they kind of pulled out of that with the Exile on the Main Street album. So I'm assuming that's, where they start getting full control of their masters. But Paul getting control of the masters, that allows him to have a say. And then, of course, 10, 15 years ago, he came out with Let It Be Naked, his version, stripping out everything that was done in the album that he didn't particularly care for, and editing a lot of stuff out. And so now there's two versions of Let It Be, the original version and, the naked version, which Paul likes. And so thing 3 is, this came out in the last 2 weeks or so, artists are canceling tours. So J-Lo and the Black Keys just couldn't sell, the tickets for their upcoming tours. The Black Keys had planned what they would call a stadium tour. So I assume those are NBA arenas. And I'm, J-Lo's always done NBA arenas. So, they're kind of legacy artists now. I believe J-Lo put out album recently, and it just, when's the last time J-Lo was charted or the Black Keys on the top 40? So that, at some point, these artists, become legacy artists, and it's getting interesting. The Jonas Brothers had to cancel, sometime, this year, their European tour, and Pink and Justin Timberlake have had to cancel shows as well. So, what's going on? When, all these, Pink is, charted a little bit in the last year or two, if I remember correctly. But, they're not, they're being replaced by younger artists. This happens with everybody. It happened in the 70s with Paul McCartney and John Lennon when they went solo. They still, they still did well and charted and sold records. But this is just a life cycle of an artist. What's a little different here is, the Black Keys are now going to step down, and play more intimate venues. And this is going to hurt. These Gen X are going to be hurt. It's a different. I mean, so they're dropping down from 18 to 26,000 seat venues, to these 3 to 8,000 seat venues. I mean, that's the mid range before you get into literally the club scene and most hip hop. I mean, the classic hip hop acts from the 80s and 90s, if they go on the road, they're going to, they're doing the club scene. I mean, that's the only ticket they have. Now, here's the problem for these Gen X acts is many of the venues, that these 3 to 8,000 seat venues, many of them are outside because it's cheaper. And, their rabid fan base, I mean, their hardcore fans are in their 40s and getting in their 50s. And global warming is real. It really hit me last year. I just turned, I'm in my late 50s. It really hit me last year. I actually, I've seen George Clinton in Parliament Funkadelic 4 times. I had tickets last year. And it was a night show, and at 10 o'clock, here in Indianapolis, Indiana, it's going to be 95 degrees. I was like, I can't do it. And I think, you had to bring your own lawn chairs. And then Sheila E. played in downtown Indianapolis. We have a venue, the TCU outdoor, seats about 5,000 to 6,000. I think 6,500 might be its max. But it's outdoors, and it was the first Saturday in October, and it was still 85 degrees, and I couldn't do it. Never seen Sheila E. and wanted to see Sheila E. And I was just talking to another friend of mine. I ran into him earlier this week. He's in his early 40s. He's a Gen Xer. I told him, I said, because he goes to concerts every year, and I was like, what do you, who you seen this year? And he told me, and they were all outdoors, and I said, I can't do outdoors anymore. He's like, I'm almost there. He said, this is probably the last year where I'm going to be able to be, the heat's just that bad, and the older you get, the more susceptible you get to heat. I mean, I went to the Indy Pride Parade last year, and short sleeves, it was probably 85 degrees that day, in the morning too. So it was 10 to 1, and then I, went to they have a big, outdoor thing. So I went to that. So I was probably out for 5 hours. I'm a light skinned black person. And so I got a mild sunburn. I've had them before, but it lasted 2 weeks this time. And it's probably been 10, 15 years. I mean, I used to be able to be out in the sun forever and not even, get worrying about that. But when I would get a little burn, it would last for a day or two, and it took 2 weeks to heal. And going back to this TCU outdoor downtown Indianapolis venue, I mean, it was 2021. I saw TLC and Bone Thugs and Harmony there. Enjoyed the show, but it took 2.5, 3 days for me to of drinking a lot of water to replenish, and I do, heat and water is not really good anymore for me, and I, spent 2 days, preparing for that, and drunk 3 bottles of water, maybe even 4 at the show, and I still, the hydration issue is still there. So, that's going to be a problem for these Gen X acts. I'm not the only one. My other friend who was going to go to the P-Funk, she said it was too hot too, and she didn't go. Free tickets. So, that's an issue. I mean, it's unfortunate because I mean, the poster child for making a lot of money, and outdoor concerts was the Beach Boys. I mean, through the 80s and 90s and even, up until now, I mean, the Beach Boys would travel in the summers and go to not just state fairs, but county fairs and make a lot of money doing it. But it's a different climate. And you can sit there and say, oh, climate change is a hoax. Well, I mean, look, I was born and raised in the Midwest, other than 3 years, I lived in Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana. And, you know, winter started in November 1st and lasted until May 1st. And now, we're lucky if we get 6 weeks of winter. So, yeah, I don't need to see the scientists' numbers. And this is going to be a problem for these Gen X. They're not going to be able to make the money on the road that folks made in the past. And that's unfortunate. But anyway, yeah. Looking at trends and stuff and whatnot. So thanks for coming through. I've been forgetting to do this, so I'm going to start doing this at the end of each episode. Please hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel. I don't know why I did that in the beginning. Haven't been doing it for a while, but it does help move me up on the YouTube's algorithm, so I really appreciate it. I also I have my own music, so I have 5 albums out there here attached to my YouTube channel, and on all the streaming services. Just Exodus, and then I have science fiction, fantasy novels, and a novella on Amazon. Hard, paperback, you can order through Amazon, or you can, get the digital version of the books there on Amazon. Peter Exodus O'Coffer, or Peter O'Coffer, either way works for the books on Amazon. So again, I appreciate you coming through, and I will see you next episode.